Look, guys, it's me. I'm in Gary's mod. Wow. Ignore my eyes. That's how they normally look. What is this?
I'm over here stroking my...
The Source engine was the source of a lot of my old-time favorite gaming experiences I've had my whole life. It was developed by our good friend Valve back when they actually liked making games. For their first one, Half-Life in 1998, they modified the engine for Quake and made the Gold Source engine. And people loved it. Half-Life was super successful, it was revolutionary for single-player FPS games, and Valve wanted to release more games in their new engine. A popular mod of Quake was Team Fortress in 1996, so Valve was like, hey, oh my god, isn't this so cool that we both messed around with Quake? Do you want to make it in our engine and release it as a real game? I don't know. So Team Fortress Classic was released in 1999, and this was just the start of Valve recognizing the talent in small developers. Another instance was Counter-Strike, also in 99. Unlike Team Fortress, this started as a mod for Half-Life, so instead of remaking their game in a new engine, Valve hired the team and released Counter-Strike pretty much as it was. Same thing with Day of Defeat in 2003. It was a Half-Life mod where Valve hired the developers and released the game for real. But since 1998, Valve was building on the Gold Source engine, adding stuff piece by piece. By 2004, the engine had evolved so much that Valve rebranded it as just the Source engine, and then released the first game using it, Counter-Strike Source. Whoa, nice graphics! The models and textures were more detailed, the lighting was more advanced, and what's this? That barrel just moved in a realistic manner. Before CSS came out, though, there was actually a leak of Half-Life 2, so that was technically the first time people saw the Source engine, but it was a very early version of it. It was also conceptually very different from the Half-Life 2 we know today. It was very dark and gritty, and some people actually prefer this. But then it was officially released in 2004, the same exact day that the first episode of House aired. A very important day for autistic amputees named Charlie. Half-Life 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I still think it's fantastic. Go play it. It was also the first game to be offered on Steam, which was like a software that let you buy Valve games on PC. Didn't really go anywhere though. This was the real display of the Source engine's capabilities. Sorry, Counter-Strike fans.
You are deaf and blind and
like CSS, there was better graphics and lighting, but Half-Life 2 was really showing off with the physics. Early in the game, you get the gravity gun, which lets you pick up, move, and launch objects, pretty much turning everything around you into a weapon. Thank Havoc for this realistic physics simulation. It pretty much set the standard for video games going forward. But it didn't stop there. Source also introduced groundbreaking facial animation. Look at Alex's expressive face. Look at how her lips sync up with her speech. None of this was mocap, by the way. There was also better AI. Enemies and NPCs had better pathfinding and behavior patterns. This also set the industry standard for the time. And there was so much more. Look at that realistic water. It's like I could drink it. Wow. It is 2004. Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed just came out. Along with Half-Life 2, Valve released the first version of the Source software development kit. So pretty much right when the engine was introduced, you could use the same tools that Valve used to develop your own games, and for free given you owned a Source game. And this kept being updated, because the engine kept being updated. Like before, Valve kept adding things to Source, like a sort of Gabenstein's monster, perchance. Day of Defeat Source came out in 2005, then Valve hasn't touched the franchise since. Poor Day of Defeat. You were so young. What could have been? There just aren't enough World War II FPS games today. But this was the first Source game with HDR rendering and color correction. HDR rendering allows for a wider range of light and shadow to be shown without losing any details. If you want to learn how Source specifically uses this, play Lost Coast. It's a tech demo where Valve is fully stroking themselves the whole time. Oh, our engine is so good, man. Oh, look at that dynamic tone mapping. With the release of Half-Life 2 Episode 1 in 2006, Valve added something called Phong shading, which made everything a whole lot smoother. So that combined with HDR rendering and color correction gave the Source engine an upgrade since 2004. Too bad Episode 1 is the worst mainline Half-Life game. But also in 2006, my most played game on Steam officially came out, Gary's Mod. I say officially because it started as a free mod of Half-Life 2 the same year it came out. But Gary Mod himself kept updating it until Valve took notice, and then they made a deal to release it on Steam. As you probably know, it's a sandbox game in the Source engine, but what makes it so unique is that it's connected to the Steam Workshop with tons of user-generated content. There's always something new and exciting to check out, like GM Cat or Markiplier Citizen Player model. I played Gmod long before I played any Half-Life game, probably because I was 12 and watching a lot of Venturian Tale and Vanos Gaming. I could make a whole video about just this game. There's a lot of lore. Look up the Glue Library incident. It's cool. It's good. Hey, it's me, Venom Snake from Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Insurance took my prosthetic arm away. Bazinga, gamer subs, use code CHAMP. ChampUT doesn't work anymore, use code CHAMP. 10% off and you support me. But for the next 48 hours... But for the next 48 hours, guys, you'll get free shipping, which means you can get free samples, use code CHAMP, and get them shipped to you completely for free. My personal favorite is Copium. It's their cranberry flavor. My mom says I look like I'm about to storm the Capitol, and it's really upsetting. Okay, back to the video. Anyway, in 2007, the Orange Box was released. Valve was, for the most part, a PC gaming company, so this was their answer to the console market. It was a collection of multiple games, all made in Source. There was every Half-Life 2 game, including the new Episode 2, which is really good. But it also had Portal, which was a completely new IP, based on a game made by a group of college students. If you're into Valve games like me, you've probably heard this story in many a video essay, so let me speed through it. This group of students showed their game Narbacular Drop at their college's career fair. Puzzle game, you have two portals, you go in one, you come out the other. A Valve developer saw this and he was like, oh. He reached out to them later and was like, hey, do you want to show this game at the Valve office and to Gabe himself? So they did that, and Gabe immediately was like, oh my god, you're hired. Make this game in the Source engine. And I think the development of Portal alone is fascinating. This video by Tyler McVickor is really good. The last game in the Orange Box was Team Fortress 2. Some of the original devs of the Team Fortress mod and Team Fortress Classic worked on this, but for the sequel, they not only switched to Source, but they also overhauled the art presentation. They also had a bunch of promotional ads, introducing you to every role you could play as. These ads used the earliest version of Source Filmmaker, which we'll get to in a bit. Left 4 Dead came out in 2008. This updated the engine in several ways, most importantly, Nextbot AI. Yeah. Think Left 4 Dead for those iconic shitposts. Left 4 Dead 2 came out the next year, then Portal 2 in 2011. Okay. Can you let me just spill my feelings a little bit? I'll clean up, I promise. This was my favorite game of all time. It was my first game on Steam. I first played it when I was like 10. It showed me how amazing video games could be. The puzzles are challenging but really fun. The story is interesting. The writing is really compelling and witty. J.K. Simmons is in it. I got this hat when I was maybe like 11 or 12. Yeah, it still fits great. How the fuck is this gonna fit somebody at Aperture Science's head? They're scientists. They have big heads. Brain. There's a joke there somewhere. Fuck it. In 2012, after the final TF2 Meet the Team video came out, Source Filmmaker was officially released to the public. This is an accessible 3D animation software, and Valve fully encouraged people to make stuff with it by throwing worldwide competitions. Winners of different categories were given Saxy Awards, which were exclusive items in TF2. And the best overall winner was flown out to Valve HQ to meet their team. They stopped these competitions in 2017, but as we all know, Source Filmmaker definitely didn't die out. Anyway, more games were released. CSGO in 2012, Stanley Parable in 2013. Very different for a Source game. No action, no guns, you can't even jump. Just purely an experience for a weird story and a commentary about choice in video games.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Also in 2013, you got Dota 2, and guess what? Dota 1 was a mod. Valve hired the developers to make the sequel in Source. History repeats itself, which in 2015 was ported over to the Source 2 engine. What? Source 2, the squeakquel? This was meant to be the successor to the Source engine, and Dota 2 was the first to use it. Then there was a Source 2 tech demo in Valve's VR game, The Lab. Foreshadowing. In 2018, there was Artifact. Remember Artifact? In 2020, there was another Dota game that I don't give a shit about, but there was also Half-Life Alyx, the first Half-Life game released by Valve in 13 years. Entirely in VR, used the Source 2 engine, and also completely accessible with one controller. Oh, I got it! Press while holding the weapon over your shoulder.
Last mag.
Oh, okay, that's a creative way to go about that. That's fun. Like, thank you, Valve. Then in 2023, CSGO switched to Source 2, kind of like Dota 2 did. They also renamed it to Counter-Strike 2, which I'm not personally a fan of. I think CSGO had a better ring to it. There's also supposed to be a Gmod sequel in the works that's in Source 2. I'm excited, but I just doubt that it would be the same. The original has made such a big impact over the years, and I have no way of knowing, but I just doubt that a second one could reach that level. And I could say the same thing for their respective engines. I just doubt that Source Part 2 Battle Tendency could just do the same that Source 1 could. Titanfall and Titanfall 2 were originally made with a modified Source engine. You could barely recognize it, but there were probably some Malo 7s buried deep within the files. Apex Legends still uses a lot of code from Source. It helps manage the servers with all those people in them. Same with PUBG, which is an Unreal Engine 4, but it uses code from Source to manage the multiplayer. And Valve still encourages indie devs to make stuff with their engine, even if it directly uses their IP, which is awesome. Like, why would a company not want to encourage fan interaction? Oh shit. Black Mesa was a fully fan-made remake of Half-Life 1, but in the Source engine. And it's really good. Clearly a lot of effort went into it. Personally, I don't think it replaces the original, G-Man isn't polygonal enough for my taste. Entropy Zero 1 and 2 are both fantastic, especially 2, second best Half-Life fanfiction ever. The first, of course, being Hunt Down the Freeman. Yeah! You fucked up my face. But there's also Portal fanfiction, like Portal Stories Mel and Portal Reloaded. Both are really good. But Jesus, I could not finish Portal Reloaded. It's so hard. Oh my god. You gotta be a genius to not look at a walkthrough at least once. Still really good, though. The source engine was so important. Games of different genres were made. There were amazing multiplayer experiences. Animations were made, communities were built. Source and the source of source and the source of the source of source was the source of amazing creations that will go down in gaming history. Thank you for watching. I know that there's a lot of stuff that I didn't talk about. There's just so much. Sorry if I didn't talk about your favorite source game at length. Please subscribe. One subscription is one Zen crystal pushed into the antimass spectrometer, causing another resonance cascade and another 7-hour war. And smash like for one thing. I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind. I've designed this rhyme to explain in due time. I only know the lyrics, those first little lyrics of that song because of that source video.